Good day, sir. I am Jeroy Navida from 3B PEDC, and I will be discussing the Module 3, which is the formative assessment. The use of assessment to provide feedback to teachers and students in the course of learning is called formative assessment. Information gained through informal assessments provide opportunities for teachers to make adjustments to the ways in which they deliver instruction. For example, they may reteach a concept, use alternative instructional approaches, or offer more opportunities for practice and reinforcement. These activities can lead to improved student success. Formative assessment process. It is a deliberate process used by teachers and students during instruction that provides actionable feedback that is used to adjust ongoing teaching and learning strategies to improve students' attainment of curricular learning targets or goals. This process, I let's start with clarify. Clarify determine learning goals or what students will know by the end of the lesson. Goals describe big ideas or concepts and reflect academic standards. Learning goals are written in student-friendly language, beginning with I understand. Establish success criteria or the evidence teachers and students use to determine how students are progressing toward learning goals. They are also written in student-friendly language, beginning with I can. Elicit. Engage in a learning event or activity that prompts and generates evidence of learning. Evidence should be tightly aligned to the learning goals and guided by success criteria. Consider student needs, interests, and learning styles when deciding how to elicit evidence so that students can demonstrate their understanding in different ways to meet the success criteria. Use multiple sources of evidence to draw accurate conclusions about student learning. Interpret. Review evidence to determine students' progress towards learning goals and success criteria. Interpreting is about using evidence to identify the gap between where students are and where they need to be. Students can analyze evidence of their own learning and discuss with teachers and peers. Interpreting evidence is not a single event but part of an ongoing process throughout instruction. And lastly, the act. Teachers determine and initiate appropriate instructional. This may not be the same for all students and must take into consideration each student's readiness, interest, and learning preferences. Students receive feedback that is specific about what they need to do next in the learning process. We have the characteristics of formative assessment. Number 1, it evaluates the learning process and the learner's progress at the same time. Number 2, a formative assessment is collaborative as it measures the student's progress and the effectiveness of the teaching method. Number 3, formative assessments are interwoven with the ongoing teaching and learning process. Number 4, it is a fluid method of evaluation. The student's progress is not measured against a standard or benchmark, unlike what you will find with summative assessment methods. Number 5, formative assessment requires the instructors and the students to become intentional learners. Number 6, the aim of formative assessment is to gather actionable feedback that improves the overall teaching and learning process. Number 7, it is a diagnostic method of evaluation. Number 8, results from formative assessments are immediately made available. And lastly, formative assessments are non-graded. Types of formative assessment. Observation is one form of formative assessment is observing the students as they work on a specific project. The teacher roams around the classroom, occasionally offering guidance and encouragement as the students work. The observation works well when the teacher wishes to monitor how students work together in groups or individually. He or she takes notes on how students are performing and also whether or not modification need to be made to the assignment. Next is worksheets. Teachers may use worksheets as formative assessments. This can be classwork or given out as homework. This work will not be included in the student's official grade, but rather used as a means to gauge how well the students understand the material being covered. The teacher may find that the work is too easy for the students or that they are not comprehending the information well enough. Using this information, he then make modifications as needed. 3. Pop quizzes. Often teachers use pop quizzes to gauge student comprehension. Again, these quizzes are not graded. One method of a formative assessment in quiz form is to use an overhead projector to run through questions regarding the lessons and have the class answer as a whole. This form of assessment works well when reviewing for a summative test. Teachers can also give individual quizzes to students or have groups of students complete a quiz. Number 4 is journals. One effective means of formative assessment is the journal. Students are required to periodically write their thoughts and feelings about how they are progressing in the class. They can also tell what they like or didn't like about a particular assignment. This information gives the teacher a quick look at how effective a certain lesson plan was. If the majority of the class journals that they had a difficult time with a particular lesson, then the teacher knows he needs to make changes to that lesson. Lastly is the diagnostic test, generally used toward the beginning of the class term. Diagnostic tests are a type of formative assessment that allows the teacher and administration to determine the proper level of instruction for students. Diagnostic can be used in almost any subject to assess the level of proficiency, comprehension, and mastery of information. It is helpful to inform the students that this is a diagnostic tool that will not be graded but will be used to help them see their strong and weak areas in a subject. Informing the students reduces test anxiety and produces more accurate diagnostic result. We have 7 examples of formative assessment: the in-class discussions, clicker questions, low-stakes group work, weekly quizzes, 1-minute reflection writing assignments, homework assignments, and surveys. The elements of formative assessments. Identifying the gap is the process of defining the difference between what students know and what they need to know. It includes collaboration between teacher and learner to identify learning goals and outcomes and criteria for achieving this. Number 2 is feedback. It gives the teacher information needed to identify the current status of a student's learning as well as the specific next steps that student can take to improve. Teacher feedback to students must be both constructive and timely to enable students to advance their learning. It must include description of how their response differed from that reflected in the desired learning goal and how they can move forward. Student feedback and reflection can alert the teacher of the need to modify instructional approaches. Number 3 is learning progressions are used by the teacher to break a learning goal into smaller, more manageable sub-goals. The teacher identifies a student's location on the learning continuum and works collaboratively with the student to set a series of smaller goals. Number 4 is involving students in decision about their own learning and in self-assessment helps students to engage in reflection and build their metacognitive skills. See the TEAL Center fact sheet on metacognitive processes. There is a profound influence on student motivation and self-esteem when students are involved in self-assessment and understand how to improve. And last subtopic is the formative assessment strategies. Number one is analysis of students' work. Students' homework, quizzes, and standardized tests can be used as evidence of student learning. When teachers carry out the analysis of students' performance, they get knowledge. Number two is strategic questioning strategies. Strategic questioning methods can be used with the students as daily classroom practice. The main aim of questioning is the academic progress of students. Effective formative assessment practices involve asking learners to answer higher order questions such as how and why. Number three is think, pair, and share. It is one of the simplest formative assessment strategies. As a classroom practice, the teacher asks a question and students write down their responses. Then, students sit in pairs to engage in effective classroom discussion about their answer. Number four is admit or exit tickets. An admit or exit tickets provides a simple but useful formative assessment type. An exit ticket is a small index card or piece of paper on which they provide an accurate interpretation of the current topic taught in the class, and then they discuss more of the topic. The learners deposit their exit slips when leaving the classroom. Admit tickets are used as the students enter in the class. They are used to check student learning by answering questions about the homework or what was taught the day before. And lastly, 1-minute papers. 1-minute papers are mostly carried out before the day ends. They provide an opportunity for students to answer a brief question. Then, these papers are collected and assessed by the teacher to gain insight into the student learning process. 1-minute papers provide the formative assessment practices that are found to be more beneficial when done on a regular basis. That's all, sir. Thank you and God bless.